Real Madrid didn't just appoint Arbeloa.
It is Álvaro Arbeloa who's taking over, and as Alex mentioned, 7 seasons as a first-team player at Real Madrid.
They made a choice about who really runs the club. Because after the Supercopa loss and Xabi Alonso's exit being framed as a breakdown in player-manager relations, the big question isn't what's Arbeloa's system, it's does he even get to have one? In this video, we're breaking down what the reporting suggests: a dressing room where star power has grown, instructions have been ignored, and authority has eroded. So, when Madrid hires a beloved clubman with limited senior experience, is it a rebuild or a peace treaty?
You've got a decision to make. Do I do it my way, or do I just keep everybody happy and hope it goes the right way?
The 3-2 loss to Barcelona tells a specific story, and it goes deeper than the scoreline. If you watched the touchline closely, you saw a team that had completely turned out its manager. During the match, reports suggest players were actively ignoring Xabi Alonso's instructions. He would point one way and the squad would go the other. That disconnection on the field makes it impossible to win tight games, and it explains why a manager with Alonso's reputation felt he had no choice but to walk away from the job. The clearest sign of this power shift happened right after the final whistle. Alonso reportedly asked his team to stay on the pitch for a guard of honor. But Kylian Mbappé had a different plan. He was seen gesturing for his teammates to get off the field and head straight to the dressing rooms. And here's the telling part: most of them followed Mbappé, not their manager. That is a public show of defiance. It told Alonso that despite his title, he wasn't the one leading the group anymore. The club officially called Alonso's departure mutual consent, but the details behind the scenes look much more like a power struggle that the manager lost. Tensions had been building for weeks, particularly with Vinicius Jr. The winger was reportedly unhappy about being benched and made his feelings clear to the top executives. Sources indicate Vinicius communicated to Florentino Perez that he wouldn't sign a contract extension while Alonso remained at the club.
He has told Real Madrid, hey, I am not saying anything about a new contract as long as Alonso's here.
When senior players feel safe enough to give the board ultimatums about the coach, the manager is fighting a losing battle. This dynamic mirrors the player power era we saw at Madrid in the early 2000s. In those days, the dressing room hierarchy often mattered more than what the coaching staff wanted. The recent war wasn't about tactics or formations, it was about authority. When players feel empowered to bypass the manager's instructions, the whole structure collapses.
And we all felt that Alonso was going to come in and it was going to be fresh, and it was going to be different, and it was going to be vibrant and dynamic, and it was the opposite. And I think it was the opposite, not because he didn't want that, but I think it was the opposite because he got a group of players, and maybe I'm not painting them all with this brush, but it certainly looks like a lot of them have almost, whilst not maybe verbally have said anything, but are thinking to themselves, this is how we do things at Real Madrid, this is what's worked for us, and we're not taking on board.
We can actually see this loss of authority in the numbers. In Alonso's final few weeks, the team's defensive work rate dropped significantly. The pressing intensity and structure that made them solid earlier in the season disappeared. While there were injuries and changes to the squad, the lack of training comes back down to effort. When that drops, it means the players have stopped running for the man in the dugout. The defense became vulnerable because the collective commitment just wasn't there.
That he could get results with these players because he tried to get them to do things his way, pressing and running and all this different stuff, and it clearly was, he was facing some backlash, certainly if you looked at performances.
The arguments on the sideline and the bad body language weren't just heat of the moment frustration. They were proof that the dressing room had decided who was really in charge. The visible frustration, like Vinny's reaction after being substituted in El Clasico, showed that the players had stopped listening well before the Supercopa.
An unnecessary substitution, he has now created yet more drama around him and his relationship or not with Vinny Jr. And that in itself, again, is only going to create more. You said something about Barcelona, that they look more like a unit. They
like the locker room look.
They look
seems
more together.
Cohesive, for sure.
You don't say cohesion when you talk about Real Madrid and Vinny Jr. and his relationship with Xabi Alonso.
Yeah.
This defeat was just the final symptom of a locker room issue that had been spreading for months. But to understand exactly how the players gained this much control, we need to look at the biggest arrival of the summer: Kylian Mbappé arriving in Madrid felt like the end of the game for everyone else in Europe. It was supposed to be the move that secured the Champions League for the next 5 years, but instead of locking down their dominance, his signing fundamentally broke the team's internal balance. When you look at successful teams, there's always a mix of hard workers and stars, but Mbappe's arrival tipped the scale too far. The essential balance between the team's ego and its work rate disappeared. Tactically, the friction is simple to spot. If you watch the heat maps from recent games, you see the problem clearly. Vinicius Jr. and Mbappé naturally drift into the exact same zones on the left channel. They both want the ball at the same time, in the same spaces, to do the same thing: cut inside and shoot. This creates a traffic jam on one side of the pitch while leaving the right side completely empty. It makes the attack predictable, and it forces teammates to pass directly into crowded areas instead of finding open space. But the tactical clash is actually the smaller issue compared to the psychological shift. The real damage happened to the hierarchy of the squad. When you have 3 players, Mbappé, Vini and Jude Bellingham, who all expect to be the main character every single night, the collective system falls apart. Xabi Alonso found himself managing massive egos instead of implementing tactics. He effectively became a spectator in his own team. The Galactico status started to matter more than the actual game plan.
So I think he had all those issues to deal with. Plus the egos, plus I'm not playing, why am I not playing? Vinny's management getting involved, and I think he's just gone in there, Alonso, and thought, you know what? Good luck to whoever wants to come in and try and take over this lot, because it is an ego-maniac kind of place.
We saw the results of this in the midfield structure. In previous seasons, someone was always willing to do the dirty work to cover for the attackers. But with this new trio leading the line, the defensive tracking stopped. The midfield lacked a disciplined anchor because the pressure was to play all the stars at once. This left the back line completely exposed every time the opposition countered. It feels like a direct repeat of Florentino Perez's first presidency. He bought the Ferrari engines, but he forgot to buy the steering wheel.
You can't go from that to Real Madrid and then be told that you're a bad coach. You got to think it's what Craig's talking about, and it doesn't take many. It takes 2 or 3 to not want to do what they're supposed to be doing, and the whole thing just becomes so unbalanced. And it has to be that, because as I said, a guy who coached a team so well doesn't all of a sudden become a bad coach.
The pressure to accommodate every big name meant Alonso had to burn his own tactical handbook. His meticulous framework was sacrificed so individual players could have their moments. It created an environment where star status protected players from being subbed or critiqued.
And we can always have a go at Vinny because he obviously makes it clear whether he's happy or whether he's unhappy. But it has to be more than just one guy, and there has to be too many who either don't get it or probably more likely just don't want to do it.
If you cost a fortune, you stay on the pitch, even if you aren't running. Mbappé isn't the sole problem here, but his arrival was the catalyst. It turned a disciplined, hard-working team into a collection of individuals playing for themselves. Now the club is looking for a way to rapidly fix this mess, but based on their next move, they might be looking in the wrong place entirely. Real Madrid's answer to this tactical and cultural implosion is Álvaro Arbeloa. It is a decision that has sparked debate because he is a club legend with 0 senior management experience.
You know, he has been named as the new Real Madrid coach, and so he's the coach. We don't have details yet of that contract, but he is Real Madrid's new coach, and let's see how long that lasts. It's going to be fascinating. He has no experience, of course, of coaching at the highest level. As you say, he's been at the academy for the last 5 or 6 years, coaching Castilla, winning trophies with the youth teams, but that's a very different ball game to coaching at senior level. Everybody talks about what
he's never managed a single minute of top-flight football, yet he's now responsible for the most expensive collection of talent in the world. This appointment tells us exactly what Florentino Perez prioritizes right now. He's choosing stability over structural repair. He isn't looking for a tactical genius to fix the spacing issues, he's looking for someone to lower the temperature. It signals that the board values a quiet dressing room more than a coherent game plan. We often hear Arbeloa described as a man manager. In this context, that's the term often used for coaches hired to keep superstars happy, rather than challenge them. Arbeloa fits the profile of a peacekeeper. He understands the Real Madrid DNA intimately. but knowing the club's history doesn't help you figure out how to press Barcelona's midfield when you're overrun. It doesn't help you balance a forward line that refuses to defend. The concern is that Arbeloa has been brought in to be a yes man who won't fight the players like Xabi Alonso did. Alonso lost his job because he demanded discipline. Arbeloa is likely there to ensure comfort. We have to question if a former teammate and friend of the club can actually enforce discipline on egos this size. The dynamic is inherently difficult. If Kylian Mbappé decides he doesn't want to play through the middle, does Arbeloa have the authority to insist on it? Or does he fold to keep the star happy? Critiques argue that without the tactical authority to bench underperforming stars, Arbeloa is just a placeholder. He becomes a spectator in the dugout, watching the players do whatever they want.
And I think that's going to be the intrigue now. Is Arbeloa going to get that tune out of this team and everybody's on harmony? Or are we going to sit and watch them every weekend and go, this is just the same? Yeah. This is the same. They're press when they want to press, they'll run about when they want to run about, and they'll try and flick a switch and turn it on. That's going to be the real intrigue for me watching Real Madrid going forward, what the difference Arbeloa can make.
This strategy carries massive risk. It risks wasting a season of prime talent on a vibes-based approach that lacks tactical depth. We've seen this happen before, when a team relies entirely on individual brilliance until they meet a structured opponent who takes them apart. Arbeloa might improve the mood, but mood doesn't win trophies if the midfield is wide open. Ultimately, the evidence suggests Arbeloa wasn't hired to fix the tactics, he was hired to stop the war. The board looked at the conflict between the squad and Alonso, and they sided with the squad. This suggests the players, not the manager, are running the show. When the dressing room holds that much power, the manager becomes irrelevant. It creates a cycle where no coach can succeed unless they bow to the players' demands.
How's he going to make them on harmony, or in harmony, as the rest of us would say?
I think Arbeloa's first task or first need is to be a man manager, which oddly, I think Xabi Alonso went wrong. You never would have thought that Xabi Alonso, given certainly his playing career.
But can you see my point? If I'm Vinny or one of these players who refuse to defend or refuse to track back, if I've got Arbeloa telling me to do that, why am I listening to him? Especially when I know he's only temporary.
So, where does this leave the future of the club? It leaves them with a roller coaster full of world beaters who are uncoachable, and a manager who might not be allowed to coach them, even if he wanted to. Real Madrid is proving something we see time and time again in football. Dynasties don't usually fall because a rival team beats them. They break down because they rot from the inside out. The next few months are going to tell us the truth about Álvaro Arbeloa. We'll see if he's actually a leader who can fix the culture, or if he's just a bandage placed over a broken locker room. But the manager might not matter if the hierarchy stays the same. If the player power dynamic isn't reset, even the most talented squad in the world will continue to look amateur when the big games arrive.